Hi there, my name's Oisin Lunny. I help great people, companies and organisations tell their best stories via podcasts, events and cool webinars like this. I'm thrilled to be here on another episode of the iGaming Next Spotlight to explore the theme of identity and payments with a very brilliant person from a very brilliant company. He is the VP of Product at Trustly, Josef Darmark. Welcome to iGaming Next Spotlight, Josef. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. And thank you for the introduction there, Oisin.
Hey, very good. And I believe you're joining us from beautiful Stockholm today. Is that right?
I am. I'm Stockholm, and it's actually spring here. After a really long winter, we finally have like 15 degrees outside and sunshine. So yeah, nothing to complain about.
Oh, I tell you, there's few places more beautiful in the world than Stockholm in the spring. It is absolutely stunning. And I was having a chat the other day with somebody about, countries that you trust as brands, and Sweden is just one of them. I trust for everything to do with SaaS, with software, with apps. They're just beautifully designed. That design ethos goes all the way through it. And I think Trustly is a perfect name for a financial service based in Sweden. Now, speaking of which, viewers tuning in, I'm sure many of you will know Trustly and indeed Josef from his fantastic session at iGaming Next last year in Valletta. But let me refresh your memory or tell you if you haven't met them already. So Trustly is a global payment method. They link the world's top brands with millions of consumers to instantly transfer, pay and get refunded in the most secure and convenient way. So they really are one of the pioneers. They forged a path for open banking, leading from the front to create a world-class platform where they innovate beyond the sector they've inspired. So today, Trustly handles the entire payment journey at an unmatched scale. Believe me, this is true. They transformed the performance and experience of payments for over 8,000 merchants in over 30 markets, connecting them to 525 million consumers through 6,300 banks. So those really are kind of killer stats there. Absolutely brilliant numbers. But talk to us about your own journey to Trustly, Josef. How long have you been there and what was your path there like?
Thank you. Yes, I joined Trustly back in 2015. We were 50 people back then. I joined the management team and held the CPO position up until 2020. In 2018, we merged with Pay with My Bank in the US, and we offered a kind of offering across the Atlantic on both sides of the pond, so to speak. And since we established a global management team back in 2020, I stepped into European focused role, specifically now looking at our product offering for the gaming vertical. So. Which suits me quite well, actually. My background, I started back in 2005 working for the iGaming industry from London for Betsson. So that's where my roots are from. So I'm really happy to be providing the sector with the best solutions out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that really came across from your presentation at iGaming Next Valletta last year. You really are from the industry. You're an iGaming OG. You've got some fantastic experience under your belt, and you're really marrying this kind of view of payments, of identity, and bringing it all together in a way that's incredibly friendly for the iGaming space. So let's just take a little look at the theme that we have today of identity and payments. Now, people do say that trust is the new oil, and maybe identity is the new gold in terms of payments and actually knowing who you're working with as a consumer, as an operator. Talk to us a bit about the role from your perspective that identity plays in the iGaming market, and how have Trustly been involved in this?
Yeah, so I think you're spot on in the terms of kind of identity being the new gold. Of course, you need to have a payment solution on the back of that. But I think for me, the payments and identity is being kind of intertwined more and more, and you see more services. If you take the Uber example, which I mentioned in Valletta last year, but you of course you make a payment for the cab ride you go, but in the end it's all about identifying who you are. So once you identify yourself in the app, the payment happens automatically. So I think it's a trend we think will continue, where the identity and the payment will be intertwined and linked more and more. And specifically, maybe even more so for gaming specifically, where there's so many other kind of regulatory requirements on the back of making or accepting payment from players. And I like Trustly when I joined back in 2015, we had this idea around what we have since then successfully rolled out as pay and play. So back in 2015, we launched pay and play in Sweden. And after a couple of years, it's now become our flagship product in the gaming industry, which we now support both in Sweden and Finland and Estonia and Netherlands, and we're just about to launch UK. And Pay and Play is all about combining the identity of a payer with the payment actually happening, which both for convenience but also for security increases the value of offering these solutions for gaming operators.
Oh, for sure. And you've just mentioned a bunch of my favorite places there. You know, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Netherlands, UK, tick, tick, tick. Absolutely. You're in good markets there. And I will come back to, I'd like to ask you a bit more about that Pay and Play launch in the UK, but we will, but before we get to that, I'd love to come back to something you mentioned about the importance of regulation, because of course we've seen a lot of change in regulated markets, particularly in Europe over the past few years. You have been, you know, deep in this space through your role at Betson and also at Trustly. Talk to us a bit about what you think everybody should be thinking of or looking at in terms of regulation.
Yes, it's obviously something that I think all gaming companies has on their radar. Back in 2005, when I was at Betson, essentially you had your Maltese license, you used that license to operate all across Europe. And I mean, everyone have seen how this have now changed across Europe. There is still some markets, Finland notably, to get going with their own local license structure. And you have some old countries such as Norway, where there is a local monopoly, which isn't really functioning well. But all the states in Europe have essentially since then rolled out their local iGaming regulation. And I mean, most recently you had the rollout in 21 in the Netherlands, and you had the rollout in Germany last year. And then, of course, UK has been locally regulated for a number of years. And of course, as a gaming operator, if you are to operate in these markets, you need to hold a local gambling license. And that comes, or at least what we've seen, and I'm sure many operators see the same thing here, with local regulation, there are some opportunities, but there's also some regulatory requirements which perhaps weren't there when they were regulated out of Malta, that are now more prevalent or clear for them as they are now locally regulated. And two of those aspects circle around AML, money laundering, and also the kind of social responsibility part. I mean, in the UK, you have this white paper from the UKGC being on everyone's radar right now, as they are also trying to kind of guide the industry here in how should the industry take the responsibility to ensure they operate in a social responsible way in these locally regulated markets. And I think we'll see that continuing both as the remaining markets in Europe, such as Finland, become locally regulated, but also on the back of UK, which has been regulated for a number of years, and there's still development in terms of how the industry have to behave and adjust to ensure that you meet the expectation of the regulators.
Indeed. So you've just actually kind of, very kindly taken out your crystal ball and kind of looked into how you think this is going to go. What's happening in the UK could be very influential for the rest of Europe and different markets. But you also spoke there about the importance of social responsibility, and, the industry needs to be sustainable in this respect. We do have to look after our players, but there's obviously going to be higher demands in individual markets. It's more complex. There's more regulation. There's more, local knowledge required. What kind of questions and issues do you find at Trustly, and how do you help operators deal with them?
Exactly, and I think spot on in the sense that, yes, UK, what's happening in the UK, we will probably or have already started to see in other markets. It takes some different local flavors here and there, but the end game here for the regulators is, of course, and I think operators agree, you want an environment where people with problem gambling are not able to gamble at your site. And there's various measures you as an operator would have to take, which include kind of affordability checks and those type of areas. But the core in the end is that you need to know who you're dealing with. Unless you know who you're dealing with, you cannot confirm if they can afford to lose £500 or £5,000.
Yeah.
So I think the core of all of these measures to be responsible from a social perspective is to make sure you know who you are. And in that context, you have both the identity to when it comes to affordability, But that also involves the fact that you need to make sure you don't have minors gambling at your site. No one wants someone 16-year-old playing at your site. So whenever you as an operator have someone logging in and depositing, you want to make sure you know who they are, both so they don't lose more than they can afford, but also so they prove or be sure that they're over 18. And I think all payment providers have the opportunity to help operators here, in the sense that if you can actually tell the operator, well, here's a deposit, here's £50, it's coming from this person, then you're helping the operator to ensure that they take that responsibility, even kind of for each deposit as you go. Yeah. Which is a great value add, and I think we see that with many operators who are asking for products such as kind of name verify or age verify, where they're able to get the name of the payer or the age of the payer to ensure that that matches what they have on their record for the account.
Yeah, well said. I mean, there's a responsibility to the individual player, but there's also a responsibility to the industry and to that market, you know, to be on top of the regulations, to be on top of identity requirements, and also to make sure that there's not you know, a kind of disaster, because really that could be an existential threat to the entire sector. You know, what are your thoughts on the responsibility of the operators to make sure the business is sustainable, you know, in terms of being a sector in a territory with the regulation? You know, how can technology help with this?
Exactly. And I think it's the operators should, of course, do what they can to ensure they're kind of following the law. But I think there's a lot of value here to be had by the sector as a whole, proving that, yes, and look, we're taking the measures we can, and we're actually even innovating to ensure that we stay on top of this. Because in the end, the regulation is here because, yeah, there is problem gambling, and we need to kind of acknowledge that and do what we can. And of course, the better the industry functions in this area, and the better kind of cooperation you have with the regulator, the better chances we have to actually have a sustainable business with the functioning local kind of regulator in place for this market. So I think it's being there and taking the measures you can together with payment providers to ensure that there is a closed loop in terms of the account holder and where the money is coming from. It's really the key to make sure the regulator and in the end society is kind of happy with these gaming companies operating in these markets.
Yeah, well said. Strong agree, as I would say on the Instagram these days. But talk to us a bit about what's happening under the hood, you know, because I know that Trustly were very much involved in the, you know, innovations around PSD2 and open banking. But like, what do iGaming customers want kind of under the hood in terms of the services that you are helping them to provide?
Exactly. I mean, we were at Trustly super happy when the PSD2 regulation finally came into place in like 2018, and the banks had to start kind of offering their APIs through published or open APIs. Of course, we have our license in Sweden, and we on the back of that license, we have access to all the APIs across Europe. And what the banks have done, and we are in many situations doing this work together with the banks, ensuring that we have a structure how to initiate payments, but also a structure where we, on the back of that payment initiation, also get the name of the account holder. So we have, together with the regulator here, but also together with the banks, developed these APIs to ensure that we're able to get the name of the person holding the account, and we can share that name with the merchant. In the end, we're all in the same boat here in the terms that we don't want money laundering to happen within our framework, and we also we want to take the social responsibility and ensure that people who shouldn't lose more money don't get around to actually lose more money than they can afford. No one wants that to happen. Yeah. So I think the bank acknowledged that, and we are more than happy to play our part in that flow. Of course, in the end, the operator is the one who's being licensed, but we can, in a fruitful way, help the operator to ensure that they take that responsibility by sharing the name, by sharing the age of the payer. So we have built our APIs together with the banks and are able to share the identity of the payer in real time as a part of the payment journey, which is really crucial for operators to stay compliant. And I think, I mean, and there's a lot of operators who are also really happy about this from the perspective that if you don't know who's actually depositing the funds, you're also open for for fraud, and you're open for bonus abuse, and there's various other problems, perhaps not always linked to social responsibility, but more linked to kind of commercial aspects. And there is some really interesting aspects on the back of this identity being combined with the payment that really help operators, also on the kind of commercial aspect of it.
Yeah, indeed. And would it be right in saying that there are certain things or capabilities that you can get from harnessing various aspects of the bank APIs that you don't get on other payment options? Talk to us a bit about the difference there.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And this is, of course, I mean, there's local differences. Everyone knows of ideally in Netherlands, but if you take UK as an example, very kind of card-centric market, and people are very happy with their cards. They're using Apple Pay, and a lot of that is driven from convenience. We've seen it happening in the area of e-commerce. It was an interesting case study actually in Sweden about Klarna, and when Klarna were introduced on e-com sites, everyone thought people actually use Klarna to get a credit line. But in the end, it turns out when you speak to these people that no, they pick Klarna because of convenience. It's not like they want credit; they just want the convenience of having a single click pay or cashier experience. Yeah. So I think that's what I think we are up against, or banking, not just Trustly, but everyone who's providing bank payments here have historically been trying to challenge these existing payment solutions, which have been good at convenience, because we've had a kind of more clunky experience. But on the back of these APIs, we are able to provide a pretty seamless experience, much exactly like the card payments happens today, with a single SEA for returning customers. And the beauty there is that then we're in a position where the user experience is equally good or even better now with bank payments, but with the huge benefit, added benefit that you get the identity of the payer, which if you take Apple Pay, you essentially don't get anything about the payer from Apple. So you get your money, right, but you have no idea where the money comes from. Mm-hmm. And now we're in the context where the user experience is equally or even better with banking payments, and it's more about educating the consumer about this rather than educating the merchants, because we all see it on our end, and we just need to make sure consumers get that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, convenience is the killer app is one of those statements that is, perennially true. But you mentioned there about the, is it the SEA? So that returning user journey. Now it's, everyone watching this, I'm sure, appreciates the huge difference in investment between acquisition at the top of the funnel and actually retention and keeping your existing customers happy. Talk to us a bit about how this kind of returning customer technology can help make that repeat business frictionless, and obviously it's going to be a lot more cost efficient than acquisition at the top.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's two aspects of the fact that we're able to identify the consumer. One is that you have the acquisition aspect. I can come to that a little bit later, but the fact that we're able to identify consumers, and again on the back of the APIs as they're offered by the banks, we're able to give returning users a streamlined experience, and where the identification and the payment happens in the same flow. Everyone who's made a bank payment with Trustly historically, you come into Trustly, you've selected your bank, you authenticated towards the bank, you select which account to pay from, and then you sign the payment. Even though that's quite clunky, that in itself has been usually successful. But I think what we're seeing now, and we've been live now for over half a year across virtually all of the markets we support in Europe, is that as a returning user, you're essentially in a position that, well, please remember me on this device. And if they opt in to do that, when they come back, we can essentially tell them, oh, hey, welcome back, Joseph. Do you want to deposit from the account you used last time? You click yes. And then there's a single SEA that you sign the payment and then you're done. And if historically our solution took 30, 40 seconds to go through, we're now down to 10 seconds or 12 seconds, which is equivalent or even better than many card transactions nowadays. So I think the APIs and the structure that's being built on top of those is really positioning kind of bank payments as I think the solution that will take over. It won't happen overnight, but I'm sure we'll continue to see this payment solution kind of capturing the a larger share of checkout here across both gaming, but also outside of gaming.
Yeah, totally. I mean, very much from the kind of retention and repeat business side of things. But talk to us a bit about the acquisition. Where does Trustly fit into there?
No, exactly, and it's that. I mean, that's what we learned when we launched Pay and Play back in 2015 for the first time. The thinking here, like, was that no one comes to a gambling site to log in or to even register. That's not why you come. You come there to play. You want to place your bets and get going. And that's what happened in the taxi industry with Uber. You want to step in and out of a car, and the same thing here. And that's the idea behind Pay and Play, and the fact that we're able to then share the identity with the operator means that when you come to a site, regardless of if you're a returning or new customer to that site, you're able to simply make a deposit immediately. And if you haven't registered before, we pass on all the information, so the name, the address, the date of birth of that consumer in the API to the operator, and the operator can sign or set the account up in the background. And then you select your account and you sign the payment, and you're done with the deposit. So as a consumer, the experience has been that, well, I came to this online gaming site, I made a deposit of £50, and suddenly the money's in the account. In the background, of course, the operator have taken whatever regulatory requirements they need in terms of registering the account and setting that up. And I think that is what end consumers really want. And in the game or in the e-com industry, you've had the type of guest checkout experiences for ages. No one wants to register to buy a pair of shoes. You want to buy your pair of shoes and go. And I think this is what we've been able to achieve. And if you as a gaming operator pay, I'm not sure, let's say you pay €200 to get people to your site, sign up and make a deposit. We can, with this type of solution, you can increase the number of consumers who actually sign up and complete making a deposit by 10 or 20% versus what it would be with the normal registration flow. So I think the acquisition here, exactly. If you pay by marketing, you get customers to your site, and then they drop off because they have to sign up or because they have to go through lengthy forms. And with this type of solution, you really give the consumer what they want.
Fantastic. Win-win. I like that. So winning on both sides of the table there. The operator gets more sign-ups, more accurate information, more regulatory compliance, and the consumer, things just magically happen the way they should, and they can get on and play as they want to. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Convenience is the killer app. And talk to us a bit about Pay and Play, because you mentioned that's going to be launched in some new territories this year. Is that right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we've had this product live for 8 years, and I mean, originally when we launched, this was all based on the Maltese regulation. Yeah. So super easy for us to roll it out across all of the markets. But as we spoke about earlier, gaming industry becoming locally regulated, and on the back of that, there is local regulatory requirements. So we have the solution live in Sweden, which is the Swedish license structure. We're supporting Finland, still based on the Maltese license structure, and we have Estonia based on the Estonian requirements. Since last year, we also have Netherlands, which comes with a number of kind of local requirements in terms of what you have to do to register your account. We support that, and now in just a couple of months, we'll be live also in the UK with our Pay and Play solution here. And I think that's it's super interesting because the UK has we have a really strong setup where we're able to give these consumers a super convenient way. When they come into a site, you simply make your deposit. If you're a returning customer, fine, you get automatically logged in. If it's your first time use of that site, we will pass name, address, date of birth to the operator. The operator sets that up. And in the end of the flow, of course, the operator can ask, well, I need your contact details. Or if there's other piece of information you need, you will, of course, ask the consumer those or the player those pieces at that point. But the flow will be super convenient, and we're able to extract it not only in a convenient way, but also in a more secure way. I think today, a lot of the UK operators, you kind of manually fill in your name, address, date of birth, and then you prove it by perhaps sending utility bill or sending a copy of your ID. And I mean, it's sometimes hard to know if that was a fake document or a stolen document or something you borrowed from your friend. With our solution, we're able to get it through our connection with the bank, essentially meaning that there's zero risk of that information being falsified. So super happy to see that coming live now in Q2. So exciting times.
Wow, exciting times ahead for sure. And this follows one of my favorite acronyms, KISS, keep it simple at the start. You know, when you're getting the customers on board, when you're doing that kind of onboarding, the less complicated it can be, the better. And I like the fact that the bank APIs and, regulations are just making sure there's, the information going to the operator is exactly who it is and what it is, and that can only be a good thing for all the reasons we've spoken about. So I have one more question for you now, Josef. If anybody's watching and they're not working with Trustly already and they'd like to reach out, I mean, how can they get in touch with you, get in touch with the team? Where would you send them?
Oh, of course, please come to me. I love this. I love this industry. I've been working in it or helping it over the last 20 years. So I'm super happy to help you. But I mean, you can go to our website, trustly.com, and you'll find it there. Or you ping me. You have Josef at trustly.com, and I'll be happy to guide you through this. I think it is exciting times. I know the gaming industry is perhaps not struggling, but yes, there is kind of headwind in terms of these local regulations, but I'm 100% sure that working together with the regulator and together with this, we'll find a strong position for the gaming industry as a whole, taking their part in the society and doing it in a responsible way, but yet convenient and fun space to be in. So yeah, more than happy to interact if anyone have any questions or thoughts here.
Fantastic. That's a great way to wrap things up. So there you have it, folks. Convenience is the killer app, and maybe Trustly is the new oil. Thank you so much for joining us. Tack så mycket, Josef Darmark, the VP of Product at Trustly.
Thank you very much, Oisin.
Great to chat to you. Folks tuning in, the iGaming Next community, I hope to see you out in Valletta this year. If you haven't been before, you are absolutely in for a treat, and you will see speakers of the caliber of Josef on the stage there. Thank you so much for joining us on the iGaming Next Spotlight on Trustly, and do feel free to connect with both Josef and myself on LinkedIn. I'll see you next time.